CityCast Pittsburgh is supported today by the Heinz History Center and their newest exhibition, Pittsburgh's Hidden History. It is a cornucopia of curiosity, a magical menagerie of memory, and a little bit of this and that. There are flowery couches, relics from Kennywood, even a collection of shivs. If you listen to this show a lot, you know we are loving this. It is truly mind-boggling to see how the curators brought together such a wide range of rarely seen artifacts to tell Pittsburgh stories like never before. To buy your tickets and learn more, visit HeinzHistoryCenter.org. Today's show is sponsored by Open Streets PGH, organized by Bike Pittsburgh. It's going down this Sunday, June 29th, when cyclists and pedestrians can roll, wander, stroll through 3.6 miles of East Liberty, Homewood, Larimer, Point Breeze, and Wilkinsburg, all completely car-free. You can bike, walk, dance, skate, whatever you want, take an exercise class, check out local businesses, build connections, and see the city in an entirely new way. There's no cost, just come on down. See the route at openstreetspgh.org and follow the party at openstreetspgh. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, UPMC is ending gender-affirming care for young people, and a lot of staffers and city officials are not happy about it. We are still in a heat wave just at the end, so we're talking about how to stay cool and maybe not overtax our power grid. Plus, we've got some Pittsburgh wins and losses. I'm with CityCast's Mallory Falk talking about some of the biggest stories of the week. It's Friday, June 27th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Mallory, hello. We have made it, I think, to the end of this heat wave.
It has been so brutal.
But it's not technically, I mean, it's kind of over. The worst of it is probably over. The National Weather Service, as we're recording this, forecast is showing highs in the upper 80s or low 90s for the rest of this month. Only a few days, but still not, I wouldn't call that good news exactly. It's going to be slightly less terrible.
Yeah, I actually saw this stat that our low on Monday was 74 degrees, and that is the warmest low temperature we've had in over a century. And I think it's only going to get hotter every summer from here. So that low of 74 might be the lowest we're going to feel during the summer for the rest of our lives. I hope not.
Mallory, you've said that before, and it's such a bummer. What is it that every
your summer you're experiencing is the coolest summer you will experience for the rest of your life?
I hate it. I hate that so much. But I think all of this just feels worse because of all the extremes lately. I saw one outlet try to make sense of this. Winter was freezing. Then we have tornadoes in March. There's a windstorm in April. We had flooding earlier this month. Now it's just blazing hot. I've been thinking about the flooding, for example. I was reading about how a ton of the rowing and kayak places around here, normally just getting going this time of year, and a bunch of them had to close because, first of all, the currents and the rivers were going way too fast. It just wasn't safe for people. But also when the water is high and there's significant flooding, the rivers get gross. There's so much more, there can be chemicals, there can be raw sewage overflows. That's kind of common around here. It's just, ugh.
Megan, I was looking into some paddling excursions on the rivers, and this might make me think twice.
I mean, you can check Alcosan. So actually, I did that right before this. Alcosan puts out alerts whenever there's a river issue or something to be aware of. I would never recommend scooping up water out of our rivers and drinking it. That's terrible. Don't do that.
Did anyone out there need to be told that? I hope none of our listeners needed to be told not to do this.
Honest to God, I have a friend who once years ago was a tour guide on the ducky boats. And yes, did that once many, many times, but did eventually get a parasite. It happened. It took a lot of tempting fate for it to happen. Anyway, it is icky, but if you're into water sports, I do genuinely recommend signing up for those Alcosan alerts. It's helpful to know.
That is a great pro tip, especially as people are trying to stay cool. Normally, my pro tip would be to get out on the water, but this is a good consideration to have before you do it.
For what it's worth, no alerts right now. We appear to be safe. And, we're talking about these extremes. I know a lot of it can be super unpleasant, certainly dangerous in its way. But by the numbers, the National Weather Service always says every summer that heat is actually the one that is most likely to get you. Like, you have to just be really mindful of how it can creep up, especially if you live in a space without air conditioning.
Yeah, and actually, you might have noticed that Allegheny County issued a code red heat advisory this week. That was the first time they'd ever done it. They recently decided to enroll in this service from the National Weather Service and the CDC that alerts you when extreme heat is likely to affect more vulnerable people, so seniors, children.
And it triggers a bunch of things, but it's just a way for the county to remind folks what services are available. So senior centers acting as cooling facilities right now, for example. Reminder, these are open for people of all ages, but they're a nice free accessible space that you can go if you need to just get a break from the heat. So those are in Brookline, Carnegie, McKeesport, Sharpsburg, Tarentum, and Plum. The city also operates a bunch of their own. So that's Beachview, Brighton Heights, Greenfield, Homewood, Sheridan, and Southside. Of course, you can go to a restaurant or a coffee shop, but you might need to buy something if you need to linger. So this is just an option to keep in the back of your mind if, that's not in the budget for you right now.
Yeah. And want to shout out libraries too. Those are also nice air-conditioned spaces.
And some museums, we have some museums in town where it's okay to go in, but obviously many of them are also ticketed.
And even if you normally have air conditioning at home, during this time of intense heat, the power grid can get overtaxed and you can lose it. Some folks have lost power this week. One of our colleagues here, Zach, he lost power a bunch of times. I think 5 glitches in a day or something.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, it was really funny watching the news pop around Duquesne Light early this week because over the weekend, they put out a thing being you know what, we should be fine. We see that the heat is going to rise, but I think we're ready. And then within 2 or 3 days, it was this looks dicey. Here are some tips for conserving energy so that we don't overtax the power grid. It was a real whirlwind of a situation.
Yeah. The tips were useful, I think. There were things like closing off the doors to any rooms that you don't use so that you're really only cooling the parts of the house that you're in. Not doing laundry in the middle of the day when the electrical load is highest. That is something I had never thought about before.
Same. I'm just happy when I remember to do it.
I'm running out of clothes right now because it's been so long. And I'm just going to say that it's because I'm doing my civic duty and trying not to tax our electrical grid.
That's it. That's definitely why.
Another pointer is turning your thermostat up a couple degrees so you're not overtaxing your system. At the time that we're recording this, only about 1,000 people of all Duquesne Light customers are without power, and Duquesne Light says that they can usually repair most problems in a couple of hours. We will drop a link in our show notes where you can report an outage if you need to. It's a pretty easy process, but crossing our fingers for everyone out there that we don't see any more power glitches.
Yeah, that would be ideal. And just one more note about the hot weather. Of course, you can also go to a pool, but maybe not the dairy pool. So this is pretty far afield of Pittsburgh, a little east of Greensburg, an hour away. So probably not likely to affect a ton of the people listening. But we just thought the story was so funny. The Trib reports that they've been having a bunch of closures because of staff shortages, and there are a bunch of reasons. But the funniest one to us is that a bunch of the lifeguards there are siblings. So when they all went on family vacation, Dairy could not open their pool.
That's some true. So many people question whether the work they do day in and day out has a real impact. These siblings know their work is vital.
I mean, thank goodness for this family. It sounds like without them, they wouldn't have ever been able to open the pool at all.
Yeah.
The borough folks say they're trying to staff up, but part of the problem is that they need help getting teens certified because a lot of the classes for this stuff happened months ago. They mentioned in the story that they're actually looking for someone who can come in and train new employees, maybe on site. So if you are hearing this, if that is you, maybe contact Dairy to help out a local community and keep their pool open. It sounds like a real public service over there.
Yeah, I mean, closer to home with the Pittsburgh pools, one real frustration that I have is how late they open. Most of them open...
Yeah, it's noon or something like that?
Most of them open at noon, and then usually the first hour is adult lap swim. So if you're not there to swim laps, and if you're a kid, you can't go until 1 o'clock or so.
That would have been so unhelpful to me as a little kid. I used to show up the minute that pool opened, and I would be there all dang day.
Yeah, I was just visiting New Orleans, which real amateur, even though I lived there and should have known better, it was a real amateur move to visit in June. So I was looking up the public pools there and they open at 8 a.m. You can spend the full day there. So a little bit disappointed that that's not an option here in Pittsburgh to just like post up at 8 a.m., wrap things up at 8 p.m. and have a way to stay cool all day long.
Come on, Pittsburgh, get it together.
Speaking of needing to get it together, today's trivia question is about our baseball team. The Pirates need to get it together too. So our Hey Pittsburgh trivia is always written by our brilliant quizmaster, Kevin Gavin. You can hear it on the show and find it on our website, pittsburgh.citycast.fm. And this weekend is actually the 55th anniversary of something historic that happened at Forbes Field, which of course was our former baseball stadium, the predecessor to Three Rivers Stadium and PNC Park. Megan, I'm curious, do you know what this historic event was that happened 55 years ago this weekend at Forbes Field? I can give you multiple choice if you're...
Yeah, I need choices for sure.
Okay. So was it Willie Stargell slugging 4 home runs in one game, Steve Blass pitching a perfect game, the last game to ever take place at Forbes Field, or the longest baseball game in Major League history?
God, baseball is my weakest sport. I'm gonna guess the last one before Three Rivers.
We'll have the answer after the break.
CityCast Pittsburgh is coming at you today thanks in part to Visibility. It's an organization here in Pittsburgh that empowers individuals who are blind or visually impaired to explore all that is possible in their lives. Visibility takes a holistic approach focused on the whole person, which includes personalized programming so clients can live however they want to live. Maybe you need help using an assistive device, a ride to an appointment, or job coaching. They even do vision screenings for kids and provide regular eye exams for adults. Whatever the need, Visibility tries to help Pittsburghers achieve their goals and pursue their passions. Visit visibility.org or follow them on social to learn how you can support the cause through volunteering, contributing, or spreading the word. Today's show is supported by the Frick Museum and Gardens and their new exhibition, Catching Sunbeams from the Porch Swing of Wisteria Castle. The exhibition is free and open to all, and the artwork is so romantic and whimsical. You get the chance to explore these abstract sculptures made of mesh and wire, and they dangle from the windows and ceilings of the greenhouse, surrounded by, of course, all these lush plants. I just love Frick's greenhouse. It is literally where I got family photos taken. The Great Lawn is where my child took his first steps in grass. I cannot wait to go back and check out these sculptures, and they're actually from a Pittsburgh-based artist, Atticus Adams. He said he was inspired by time with family, with his grandmother sitting on her porch swing surrounded by wisteria vines. Check it out and don't sleep on the historic mansion and all their new tours. Visit the Frick this summer to see this magical exhibition.
Ding, ding, ding. You are correct, Megan. 55 years ago, this weekend was the last ever game at Forbes Field.
Okay, good. I was about to say, I feel like it's kind of mean to ask me about the number of home runs 55 years ago. Absolutely not.
Take that up with Kevin. I don't write the trivia. But a fun fact is that the Pirates won both games of a doubleheader against the Chicago Cubs in that last game in Forbes Field. And their very first game in Forbes Field, 61 years before, they also played against the Cubs.
Did we win those, though?
I don't actually know the answer to that, but I feel like the chances were good because we were actually legitimately good back then.
So we're going to downshift just a bit here. Some unfortunate news popping off in Pittsburgh really over the last few months. But we heard some new developments this week, and we want to make sure that y'all are aware. And if you want to get involved, you can.
Yes. So it appears that this coming Monday, June 30th, UPMC will be stopping much of its gender-affirming care for patients who are under 19 years old. They're saying that this is in response to guidance from the federal government. So, back in January, not long after taking office, President Trump issued an executive order restricting this type of care and threatening funding for the institutions that provide it. Just last week, the Supreme Court upheld a Tennessee law banning this type of care. And so UPMC has said in a statement that they can no longer provide certain types of gender-affirming care without the risk of criminal prosecution.
Yeah. And I mean, the criticism of all of this, like right from the jump, is been that, UPMC is doing all of this like way too proactively. Like they are not required to end this type of care right now. That one thing I saw on Reddit that I think kind of captures the spirit of a lot of the criticism that I've seen, at least, is that, a lot of this with UPMC seems to be coming down to money. It's the threat that they won't get funding that they rely on for various reasons. So that's the reason. It's not about care for patients. It's about cash.
Yeah. And, this all just kind of confirms what patients have said they've been experiencing for several months. Kylie Kaczynski at WESA has been doing some really great reporting on this. I highly encourage you to follow her work. So, she reported that earlier this year, UPMC canceled gender-affirming surgeries for people under 19, so things like top surgery. But now they're stopping other forms of care like puberty blockers and hormone therapy.
And if you hear the term gender-affirming care and maybe you're just not as familiar with it, it can mean using a person's chosen name or the pronouns that align with their gender identity, but things like puberty blockers as well. And, those can delay the onset of puberty. They can stop unwanted physical changes from happening in the way that, they might naturally occur. Also hormone therapy, which can help people develop the physical characteristics that align with their identity. For example, taking testosterone to grow facial hair, have a deeper voice, things like that.
Yeah, and UPMC had already stopped offering access to this type of care to new patients earlier this year, but patients who already had these prescriptions, who were already doing this treatment, they were essentially grandfathered in, and that is the big piece that is changing now. UPMC is ending gender-affirming care for patients who are currently receiving treatment. I should say UPMC, they have confirmed that they're winding down this care. They haven't confirmed an exact date, but families and providers have been saying June 30th. That is the date they've been given for no new prescriptions.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of UPMC employees are really upset about this. As of this recording, nearly 300 of them have signed an open letter urging the company to reverse course. They are saying that following these orders would essentially be violating their own Hippocratic oath, do no harm. They're planning a rally for Sunday outside the UPMC headquarters downtown and plan to deliver the letter then.
I actually talked to one of the providers who signed the letter. Her name is Olivia Minconi. She is a registered nurse, and she works in an outpatient program that's part of Western Psych, focused specifically on youth suicide prevention. She told me that her clinic was actually warned, prepare that you are going to see an increase in suicidal youth when this goes into effect.
Probably one of the scariest things is that we actually don't know the long-term risks of this, in that never before have we seen a mass forced detransition of youth coming off of HRT. And so we don't exactly know what's going to happen. This hasn't been studied. This is new.
We also wondered if, there are other places we could point people to where, young people can go for this care. If UPMC is going offline, where can they go instead? We haven't gotten a clear answer.
Yeah, and one of the things Olivia mentioned is that, in addition to UPMC no longer protecting providers who are prescribing gender-affirming care, they aren't protecting clinicians who refer children and young people to other places to get that care, that it could be considered aiding and abetting at a federal level to make those referrals. So it can be both hard to get information about where to go, and also children who are currently being treated might not be able to get referred somewhere else.
So all of that said, we're reading the same Reddit boards as everyone else. We would love to know if you are listening to this and you have suggestions. If you know where young folks can go for care right now, can share even anonymously. We are happy to not use your name. You can call us or text CityCast. The I Will Aid and Abet Trans Healthcare Hotline is open, 412-212-8893. If we come up with good resources, we will share them in our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter and probably here on the pod as well.
Yeah. And I mean, talking about legality, something that Olivia pointed out, I've seen this mentioned in other reporting too, is gender-affirming care for young people is not a crime in Pennsylvania. This is not Tennessee, for example. It is legal here. And executive orders are not actually laws. So Trump has issued this executive order, but that has not made it the law of the land. She describes UPMC's policy change as preemptive compliance.
That's not to say that there's not risk. However, I don't think that the risk of federal backlash is worse than the risk of teens dying by suicide in our very communities. And UPMC is a system that has resources. And our ask is that UPMC uses those resources to stand on the side of the people and the trans community and not on the side of the government.
Yeah, and I think that exact sentiment is probably why City Council has jumped into the chat recently. So, District 5 Councilperson Barb Warwick introduced a trio of bills this week aimed at kind of threading this needle, right, between what the city can reasonably try to protect on its own without running afoul of federal law. So, here's what she and trans advocates came up with. Number one, deprioritizing any crime based on a person's identity.
Yeah, and the way that I understand this is, let's say the state or federal government passed, for example, a bathroom ban where trans people had to use the bathroom that corresponds with the gender they were assigned at birth. The city of Pittsburgh would not prioritize enforcing that ban.
Yeah. Number two, reduce the minimum penalty for consensual sex work happening here in the city. So that is not sex trafficking, which is non-consensual, but for sex workers doing work, it would reduce the minimum penalty from jail time to a fine. So the idea being that it's less scary, potentially less punitive if someone needs to reach out to an organization for help at any point. And then number three would add medical discrimination to the list of things that you can get help with through the city's Commission on Human Relations. If you listen to the show a lot, you might have heard of them. So that's an organization that has enforcement power to, for example, re-educate or potentially even bring a lawsuit against any company, any nonprofit, any provider where they can prove discrimination. So like one example I was given is like if a cis-het woman is able to access hormone therapy, breast augmentation, the removal of breast tissue, then a trans person should be able to access that care too.
Yeah, and we'll link to our episode with the Commission on Human Relations in the show notes if you want to learn more about their work and how to get in touch if you think you've been discriminated against.
Yeah, that can be a resource for anyone who lives or works in the city, and they really do want to hear from people. So definitely check them out. And back to Councilman Warwick, this trio of bills that she filed this week, she said that it is absolutely in direct response to what's happening at UPMC, at the federal government, that these major medical groups have an obligation not to fold, basically, in this moment.
I feel like those organizations, such as UPMC, really have an opportunity here to stand up, right, for Pennsylvanians. Like this is Pennsylvania, electorally speaking. We are a purple state, and we do have some power in terms of who we are as voters. And it would be nice if our large medical institutions would stand up and throw their weight behind the people. And say, look, medical care is for all Pennsylvanians. We're not going to pick and choose based on the whims of who's ever in the White House.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually asked Olivia, the nurse at UPMC, what she thought about these bills and specifically this bill around medical discrimination. And so she said that she feels like they're useful in terms of it can be hope-inspiring to see people in political positions advocating for trans lives. But she said her understanding, and she said she could be wrong, but her understanding at least is that it wouldn't necessarily impact what's happening at UPMC because UPMC isn't discriminating on an individual level. They're kind of creating this whole system-wide policy. And so it's not like one individual is coming in and getting discriminated against.
I think that totally makes sense. I can also see a reality where like this discrimination language at least opens the risk for UPMC to also be sued at some point. Like it just does offer that additional level of protection, hopefully. And just one more thing to note about this trio of bills too, something that was kind of striking to me is that they also are building kind of on legislation that was passed in 2023. So Councilman Warwick at the time had put through a couple of bills that were also aimed at protecting trans healthcare here in Pittsburgh, but those were aimed at protecting providers, like making sure that no provider could get prosecuted. These new bills are aimed at protecting patients. And Barb says like this whole process has been such a learning curve.
It's like it never even occurred to us that it would actually be the providers who would pull the care, right? That it would actually be the providers who would take the care away, right? We're just like, oh, we've got to protect these providers so they can continue to do the good work that they do. And so we didn't cover all the bases in that first bill. And that's why this other one is necessary. And, hindsight's 2020, right? But we should have put that in the first bill. But hey, we're here now, and so we're doing it today.
Yeah, this is so interesting to me because, part of my conversation with Olivia, she talked about how there are lots of providers at UPMC who do want to provide this care.
Yeah, and I think Barb meant when she said provider, I think she means like it never even occurred to her that it would be UPMC, the company,
Yes.
the nonprofit, that would be the one that's like tucking and running.
Yeah. So if you are hearing this and you're thinking that you want to get involved, Olivia has some suggestions. She said, first of all, if you live in Pittsburgh, you probably know somebody who works at UPMC. And
if you live in Pennsylvania, they're the largest employer in the state.
Yes, very true. So she says you could encourage the UPMC staffers in your life to sign on to this open letter. We'll have a link to that in our show notes. And you can also come out to their rally this weekend. It's Sunday at 3 p.m. in front of the UPMC headquarters downtown. The local group Trans Uniting is helping to organize it. And they also have an Amazon wish list for rally supplies. So we will drop a link in our show notes to that as well.
And for council's part, if you want to follow the legislation, they're going to be taking a preliminary look at these on Wednesday. Then there's a final vote that could come as soon as Tuesday, July 8th. There's always a possibility it gets delayed, of course. But Warwick has 4 co-sponsors on this. So like worst case scenario, it's going to be 5-4. She is hoping that the whole thing passes unanimously.
And one last thing, when I was talking to Olivia, there was a point she really wanted to make, actually kind of echoing what Barb Warwick told you, Megan. So we're going to let her have the final word here.
This is not about the people versus UPMC. This is so much bigger than UPMC, and it's a movement for trans humans across the country. And we are not asking UPMC to concede to us. We are asking UPMC to stand with us. We have power in our voices, but UPMC has a different type of power, and we are asking them to be brave, to fight for the protection and life-saving medicine of this vulnerable population, to resist the corrupt federal administration whose goal is to eradicate the existence of trans lives. I'm asking UPMC to not act like a business, but a public service with and for the people. It would bring so much hope to the queer and trans community for an institution of this size to outwardly and openly have their backs and defend their right to exist.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
So we are back, and we're kicking it off with a couple of shout outs from our CityCast Pittsburgh neighbors. We love when y'all send us recommendations. It's one of the coolest things of our membership program.
Yeah, so Ton, you from Dormont, is showing some love to a bookstore in that neighborhood, Beyond Bedtime Books. Ton especially loves how friendly the owner is. I was actually looking around on their Instagram, and I saw this book club event that looks really neat. It's not like a traditional book club, because instead of reading a specific book, you play some games and then have some quiet reading time. It sounds like a really nice way to meet people, and also not feel the pressure to have to sound really smart and articulate about a book. You can just enjoy some downtime among other bibliophiles.
Or like pretend you liked it or finished it, for example.
Yeah, very sweet. And then Sophia T. from Deutschtown is recommending Northside Community Pilates, where you can take group or private lessons. They also offer some great deals if you're in that neighborhood. So 10% off for Northside residents and employees of Northside businesses, and then 15% off for Allegheny general employees. Also 15% off for veterans and active duty members. So go do some discounts discounted Pilates if this applies to you.
Thank you so much to Tan and Sophia for sending us their recommendations. If you want to share your favorite local businesses, a nonprofit, a restaurant you're loving, you can do so by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. You send us your shout outs whenever you want, like whenever you see something you're loving. We will read it here.
No limit. You can submit however many you want.
Yes, we will read it here. Join today at membership.citycast.fm. Again, that is membership.citycast.fm.
Okay, so we're trying something a little new here to end the show, sharing a Pittsburgh win and a Pittsburgh loss from the week. Megan, would you like to kick us off?
I will. And I'm already going to break the rules because I have more than one.
Overachiever.
I'll start with the bad news. Loss for me this week is the teacher shortage. It's like extreme. Like I knew it was bad. I've seen so many stories about different school districts around here not able to staff up. Like, because now's the time, right? Like all the school districts in the state are staffing during the summer so that they are ready to go when the school year kicks off. There was a report recently from Penn State. They do like education research and things like that. They found that the number of teaching certificates, so like after you get your degree and you go get certified by the Commonwealth, that dropped 60% over 13 years. So the years they studied were from the school year 2010-11 to 2023-24, 60% over that period.
Yikes. I also knew that teacher shortages were a real problem here. I did not realize, like putting that number on it really drives home how dire this is.
Yeah, I mean, and the why behind all of this is like super complicated. There's a lot of like compounding issues here. But Pennsylvania is dealing with it in kind of a weird way, to me at least. They're giving a ton of emergency certifications to fill in the gaps. So like you have to have a bachelor's degree in something, but then you get this emergency cert that gets you into a classroom faster. And I totally get why that's happening, but that's like not what these certifications were made for. So if you want to dig into all of this, Spotlight Pennsylvania has a really good story that digs into all the details, including the why and a little bit about like potential solutions that could be on the horizon.
Okay, so what about your win for the week?
So my win is also statewide. The Pennsylvania House has passed a minimum wage bill. I'm so excited about it. In Pittsburgh, it would jump our minimum wage to $15 an hour. In smaller areas, it would eventually raise to $12 an hour. There is, of course, criticism of this. Like, for example, there's a Philly-based representative, a Democrat, who thinks this does not go far enough because it still allows for a different wage for tipped workers and people who are incarcerated. He wants to introduce his own measure that gets rid of that and raises it even more. But even he is saying like, yeah, I understand that like my version's probably not going to go anywhere. And I appreciate that this measure, the 15 and 12, like it at least has a better chance of getting through the Republican-led Senate because they have for years now declined to even consider a raise in our state's minimum wage. Like the same person who's bringing this one brought one last year, but it was $15 across the state. So this one like staggers it. It would raise over time. And there were some Republicans quoted in some stories I saw that were like, yeah, we could maybe talk about this. Like it feels hopeful.
Interesting. Because I was going to say, I feel like it's very premature to clock this as a win, given that stuff moves out of the House all the time that then just gets shot down in the Senate.
And vice versa. Stuff moves out of the Senate that the House is like, absolutely not. We have a divided bicameral legislature. But I do think it's worth noting, like everyone acknowledges that our minimum wage is a problem. Like we have the lowest minimum wage in the entire nation and every state around us is doing a little bit better. It makes we're not as competitive. Like we just can't get people in jobs the same way because of it.
Yeah. And by lowest in the nation, it's like there are other states that are just as low as us. Basically, everybody whose minimum wage is set at the federal minimum
of $7.25, which is just like, that ain't enough. It ain't enough. I also have a bonus win. This one's very lighthearted. I needed a break from the world here recently, and I watched that Vince Vaughn movie that Netflix has been shoving in my feed constantly called Nonas. And the whole time I'm watching it, Mallory, like particularly the flashback scenes, I am thinking to myself, like, this looks a lot like Pittsburgh. Like there's Mary statues in the front yards and like just the way people kind of like comport themselves. And it turns out there is a reason. It was a Pittsburgher in the movie, Joe, I'm going to mess up his name. Manganiello. Is that, how do you say it?
I believe it's Manganiello. I know this from his True Blood days. Hey there, future Mallory here. I don't know why I said this with so much confidence. Once we stopped recording, I looked this up, and he actually pronounces his name Joe Manganiello. So I am sorry, Joe, for butchering your name and pretending I knew what I was talking about. Okay, back to the show.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So he plays like a best friend type. There's a particular scene where he's in a windbreaker that makes no sense for his body type. I loved it. But also,
do you mean it's like extremely tight because that's what the people want from this man?
I mean, it also had like some Magic Mike vibes just in that one specific moment. But also, Stephen, I'm also going to mess this one up, Mallory. Chbosky? I'm not sure. Anyway, he was the director. So he did like Perks of Being a Wallflower and other places, also a Pittsburgher. And I guess they very intentionally tried to slip some Pittsburgh vibes into this movie, even though it is set in Brooklyn and Staten Island. I just thought it was like so cute. It was a nice way to escape the world. And it is not sad for what it's worth. It just like makes you think on matriarchs who have loved us and fed us and how to like honor those gifts as they age and after they pass on. It was just a nice way to like spend an hour and a half. Also, a really fun way to see how a bunch of former Sopranos actors have aged. Like, they really went out of their way to cast this movie with like, and like some from The Godfather. Like, they really worked on it.
Having never seen The Sopranos, that's not the thing that's going to lure me in, but Joe Manganiello and a very tight windbreaker might. So I might need to pull this up.
It's a really fun movie. Mallory, what do you got? I know you're going to start with a loss, so we'll bring the mood back up.
Yes, yet another very upsetting but important story. There was an ICE raid this week at a restaurant in our region in Marshall Township. So ICE arrested 14 people at Tepache Mexican Kitchen and Bar. There was a federal arrest warrant, but ICE never specified what it was for. As this was happening, this restaurant posted on social media asking people to come stand outside the restaurant, bear witness. Casa San Jose showed up as well. They are a community organization focused on the Latino community in Pittsburgh. And I just want to take a moment to give a reminder here that they are a great resource if you see or you think you're seeing ICE activity and want to make sure it's documented, reported, looked into. So their emergency hotline number is 412-736-7167.
And Tepache, like I've been there a bunch. I have family up there. It's just like such a great local spot. The restaurant is technically in Allegheny County, but I think it's worth mentioning that it is like right on the Butler County line, like literally a few yards from where Cranberry held its No Kings protest a few days ago. Like hundreds of people up there holding signs, singing patriotic songs, waving flags. Like I don't think I can overstate this. Like, that is not an uncommon thing to see in Pittsburgh, but it felt really noteworthy to see it in Butler County, which has like so consistently voted Republican for years and years.
Yeah, it happened a couple weeks ago now. Reminder, this was Trump's birthday. He was holding this big military rally, and this was kind of like the international counter rally to that.
Yeah, because if you're taking No Kings as any indication, like there are clearly a lot of people up there who are not happy about what's going on right now. And I did not expect to see that in the news,
Yes. And again, happened right outside of Tepache.
Mallory, what is your win? End us on a high note.
Yes. So my win is also an invitation to come see us at Open Streets this Sunday. So to me, it is always a win during the summer when Bike Pittsburgh hosts its Open Streets events. So a bunch of streets in a Pittsburgh neighborhood get shut down so that people can bike and walk and rollerblade, dance, stroll, whatever, without cars around. This Sunday, the 29th, from 10 to 2, they will be holding Open Streets throughout the East End, and we are going to be there. We'll be stationed in Liberty Green Park in Larimer. So come say hello. Again, this is from 10 to 2, so right before that UPMC rally later in the day.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Our music is by Benji, All the Kimonos, Hip Color, Paper Twins, and American Legion, with additional music from epidemicsound.com. Valerie Falk is our executive producer. Sophia Lowe, Elizabeth Kama, and Lizzie Goldsmith produced this week's shows. Francesca DeBecco wrote our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter, and I am your host, Megan Harris. We will be back on Monday with more news from around the city. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Kevin also shared a second fun fact about that final game. He was actually there, and he says he saw fans at the end rip out seats to take home for souvenirs and ram sewer lids against the outfield wall to try to get bricks. He clarified that he was not one of those fans. He did not participate in these shenanigans, but it's a great detail.